All right, everybody. Let's get right into this Buckeye banter. Not so instant Buckeye game review. We had a game over the weekend that went more or less as would have been planned, but we'll get right into that right now. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the Browns preview for this coming week and the news coming out of Cleveland regarding Baker and the COVID test. Let's get right into it with Buckeye banter. Welcome to Buckeye Banter, Sports in the OH. All right, so Ohio State game went more or less as everyone would have imagined, I think. We got the victory that was expected. The score maybe wasn't quite what we had hoped. I have a couple different theories on that. One is I wonder if there wasn't a little bit of the what I talked about in the preview, as far as we know based on everything everyone says is the Day and Shiano are pretty close. Coached together at Ohio State. Shiano just left after being the D coordinator to become the head coach at Rutgers again. And I wonder if there wasn't a little bit, even if subconsciously, of a let's take the foot off the gas a little bit. Let's not embarrass Rutgers. And obviously, Shiano had a much different take on what he was going to do in the second half because he broke out all the trickery. So I will say, I think that my biggest notes are Justin Fields is just nasty. Probably eventually will be considered one of, if not the best quarterback ever to come out of Ohio State. Seriously, just watching him is pretty incredible. The wide receivers, especially the top two, are also pretty special. I think that's what Ryan Day's offense with Kevin Wilson has implemented, a little different approach than what we've seen, certainly traditionally at Ohio State and certainly under Urban. No knock on Urban or the tradition of Ohio State. It's just not what we're used to. If you were watching the game, I think the commentators mentioned that there's, I think, only been four wide receivers in the history of the program to have 1,000-yard seasons. And we've had some pretty darn good wide receivers come out of this program. With that in mind, both Olave and Wilson are on pace in this COVID-19 short season to have 1,000 yards. Pretty incredible in light of the history of the university there. And again, some really talented wide receivers that have come out of Ohio State that didn't have 1,000 yards while they were there. So, interesting little tidbit. I think that the thing that continues to concern me is the discipline on defense, and that shows on the trick plays. So I think you're going to see this week huge focus on that, I'm sure. You got to follow your reads, and you got to know what you're looking at and be disciplined. We might be able to get away with that again against Maryland. Maryland, although, is better than everyone would have thought, I think. Just like Rutgers is a better team than I think a lot of people thought. To be honest, I think if you look at the Big Ten East, at the standings, you're looking at kind of a inverse of what most people would have predicted at the beginning of the year, outside of Ohio State being near the top, pretty much tied with Indiana right now. Indiana, maybe people would have put them in the middle. I don't think anyone thought they were going to be the worst team. But then as you look down the list and you've got Maryland, Rutgers, Michigan State, Michigan, Penn State, I honestly think most people would have flipped those five teams and put them in kind of inverse order, thinking that after Ohio State, you would have had probably Penn State and Michigan, and then you would have probably had Michigan State, Indiana, and at the bottom you would have seen Maryland and Rutgers. And instead, it's just a crazy season. So, again, I think we can probably get away with that sloppiness next week against Maryland, even though we're going to Maryland. It's not like playing at Maryland is a super scary environment. But the next week we got Indiana, and I gotta tell you, they're doing things they haven't done in a long time. And if we're sloppy at home, even against Indiana in this COVID season, where the shoe isn't gonna have as much of an advantage for us, um, they could ruin this season for a really, really talented team. I am sure that that's what Day's going to be telling them. We've got to get better each week, and we've got to be ready for Indiana to come in here and have a point to prove. It just broke, I think, 38-year streak of losing to Michigan, um, and I'm sure they're going to want to break the streak of losing to Ohio State. I don't know how many years it is, but we'll find out before we do an official preview for that game. So, yeah, that's kind of my wrap on this game. I think that again we looked good, especially on offense most of the time. The offensive line continues to have some small issues, which again I think is mostly understandable, but they need to get better. So I think the inconsistencies are the only thing that worry me about this team. But the talent, when they're playing at their peak, is I don't think there's a team that has more talent um, and ability than they do from what I've seen. And admittedly, I haven't watched a lot of the SEC teams. I did watch a little bit of that Notre Dame Clemson game. Again, that game's going to throw everything for a loop now with the playoffs. So we'll see what happens because obviously the committee's going to look at Clemson and wonder, okay, but they lost, but they didn't have Trevor Lawrence, and who knows what that's going to mean. So Ohio State needs to win out. I don't think there's any chance that we, especially with the way this league is looking competitive wise, the teams that everybody expects to be good not being good aren't going to help our standings. So it'd be great if Indiana wins out, and if we're their only loss if we beat them. So let's see what happens. I want to just jump into a quick Buckeye preview as well. We'll just talk about that briefly for this coming week. If you saw the news, Baker is on the COVID restricted list, I think is what they call it. So he's been basically tagged for contact tracing, but he's never tested positive yet. So that's good news for the most part because it means that he's not going to miss a game yet, as long as he continues to not test positive, as far as I understand. Come Wednesday, he'll be able to practice, so he should be good to go for this game. Obviously, we've got a number of games that we need to win coming up. The Texans just got a big victory, and they're going to keep fighting. So it's not going to be an easy game, but we should be able to beat the Texans. If we don't beat the Texans, I think we're going to start worrying about what this season's going to end up looking like. So it's a big test, a big game. I think we're going to win against the Texans. Hopefully we'll get Chubb and we'll get Wyatt back and get that ground game pounding. Take a little bit of pressure off of Baker, and let's see if we can't win one. I'm going to guess it'll be like 31-27, something like that. It's going to be close, but I think we'll win. So that's all I got. Give me your comments. Let me know what you think about that Buckeye victory, about these, what your thoughts are, things they need to keep improving on, what they're doing good at. And also if you got any comments or thoughts about the Browns. And we're going to dive in again probably later in the week with some possible trade scenarios. So if you got any of those suggestions for the Indians, leave them in the comments. Again, like, subscribe, share. Appreciate it. Have a good one.